the afternoon session. Since it's after lunch, we're going to try to be careful with our time, and I'm going to be a little less gracious than our former host was. We're going to run this at 15-minute sessions. I've asked the mic guy to cut the mic at 15 minutes, so if you're speaking, just remember that. And we'll start clapping. So stay inside your time. 15 minutes is what you got. For our first speaker, it is Manny. Where you at? Come on up, or you better rush because you only got 15 minutes.
My time already started.
Over to you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I'm here, and who was looking at the pamphlet or like the information? Okay, you got it. All right, cool. I'm here to talk about this game called basketball. Has anybody heard of basketball? Who said woo? You baller? Who's a baller? My man. Yeah. I remember crossing you up. Central, right? Oh, those are fighting words. I'm not sure why they have here. Basketball is one of the things that I do in my spare time. I think Austin Schenke has something to do with that. I love this guy. What I'd like to talk about today is a little bit of what does my everyday look like, maybe. Not every day, but like my everyday is crazy and it's unpredictable. But, what are some things that you might expect living in an urban setting? Just some of the flows, from somebody who's married. We have 5 children. We have a 6th child coming. And what does this all look like in everyday real life and all that? So we live in a row house, and God blessed us with a cheap house years ago. About 5 years ago or so, 5 to 7 years ago, real estate was really cheap in Redding. And I bought our house for $75,000, I think it was. And it's like I think it's a 7-bedroom. I forget how it was detailed, but it's a 7-bedroom, 3.5 bath. And it's it's a really big row house, and it was bigger than what we needed. And so, but we bought it because it was cheaper than other houses we were looking at. And so it just needed some cosmetic updates. We bought it, and we've been living there, and God has utilized that house in a really neat way for His kingdom and for His glory, not just for our family, but using it as a way to bless people, hosting some people there because it's so big. I really like our house. I like our location. We are kind of like in the center of the city, and we're actually in just like a really busy intersection. There's certain people that you're okay with like a low-key place. I just need a vibe around me. Like I like coming out of the house, hearing my neighbor yelling at his dog, and a couple arguing 2 houses down. Like that's just what I live for. And so if I don't have that, then it's just weird. I feel out of place, unsecured, and all these things. So it's essential that I stay in the city, basically. No, we live in this really busy intersection. It's great for people, a lot of apartment units, and but for raising children is not the most ideal, I would say, just because it's so busy. There was actually an accident last night, like right there at the intersection, involving a police car and all that. Sometimes people think it's like a racetrack coming down that street and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna live in fear. Like the Lord has us there. He's planted us there. He hasn't told us to move. And so we're going to live there, and we're going to have our children sometimes hanging out in the front, even though it's like, it's kind of busy. Our yard is not very big. We don't have a big yard. I don't know specific measurements, but maybe like, 30 to 50 by 15. No. Maybe like, 15 to 20. Like it's not a big yard. And I always feel like we got gypped because we're towards the end of the block, and so that means that the houses around the corner, starting on the other street, kind of come up along the backside of our house. And so our house kind of got gypped along with the other 2 in the corner. And then when I look at my neighbor's yard, he has like 4 or 5 times the yard that I have. So I was kind of like, man, if it would have been just one house over, it would have been great. And I would have had a garage to park my car. But now I had to find parking on the street. So anyways, that's a little bit of my context in our house. One of the things that I want to highlight is, I know that we, as Anabaptists, we have a lot of children, and that's a great thing. It's just a cultural thing to do, just have a lot of children. I have 5 children, 6 coming, and I feel like that's a lot, but I know some of you guys are just chuckling at that. You're like, man, I have 5 in 1 year. And so, but anyways, it feels a lot to my community, the Hispanic community. But, what I want to say is that everything takes intentionality. And sometimes we have to ask the question, am I here for my benefit, or am I here for the benefit of the kingdom of God and what he has for us? And so we can up and move and go wherever we want, really, and have enough yard space for our children to run in. But God has us right now in this city, in this specific house. We try to find other places to move to, and it just didn't work. Just did it. And so we're saying, all right, this is where God has us. With that said, we have to be intentional. And so obviously, there's a lot of things that go on in the city that your culture and your household just doesn't do. You just don't value certain things, right? I grew up in a household that we just watched TV and we played a lot of video games, and that was fun. And I was like, yeah, it was fun at the time. But then I look back and I said, man, I spent, I don't know how many days of my life, of hours, just wasted on video games. And I just really look back and I say, wow, what a wasted time. And so now I'm like anti-video games. I mean, I might play it occasionally if somebody's playing it or something like that, but I'm anti-video games, anti-TV. That's just like, it's such a waste of time. And I did so much of it that I just regret it. Like, man, and that was before Christ. And so, so as you know, most of you guys probably don't have a TV at your house. If you're interested in moving into a city or town, most likely you're not going to have a TV then either, unless if you move to, move away from the bishop, you're no longer under their authority, then you could have a TV and get away with it maybe. I might get in trouble for that, but whatever, this is my last session. No, but what I'm saying is, we want to make every minute count for what God has for us. And for me, and I think a lot of you guys value this idea of, making the best of our time. And so electronics, that's something that we don't promote in our house with our children. Again, I grew up in all that, and it was just such a waste. So I just see all the negative stuff that comes from that. We have a lot of little children. Our oldest child is 8 years old. And so from there on down, we have all these children. And, we have to get creative, right? We have this mulberry tree in the back that all these mulberries come down, and it's so annoying because then, like, the kids go and step in it, and then they come in, and it's just like, it's crazy. So we have to be creative. What are we going to do with our children? Where are we going to take them? And so what I'm saying is that if you're thinking about moving into the city, you might have to take your kids to a park. You might have to be intentional. You can't just open the back door and let them run in your 6 acres or whatever you have, 10 acres. There's some creative side to that. And we're okay with it. It just becomes a part of our schedule. And, you go to the local parks. There's parks everywhere. And not only can you take your kids out to run around and burn some energy, but guess what? There's a lot of times other parents there. There's other kids there from the community. And it becomes such a great avenue to take your kids out, run around, but also connect with other people in your community. And so we've experienced a lot of that. Just, hey, take the kids out, and we get to meet people. We get to use a lot of life examples from the park. If we're going there, there's a guy who's sleeping on the park bench, or some guy is high. It becomes an educational thing. It doesn't become let's get out of here. There's somebody that's high. Guess what? This is the reality of the brokenness of where we live in. And so are we going to be people that are spread out like salt where the salt is needed? Or are we going to stay in the salt packet where it's not meant to be? And so anyways, it becomes an educational thing. We say, hey, you see the guy that was high there? Like, yeah, he's doing drugs, and, he probably, was going to drugs instead of God. And so we use things like that as an educational thing that it better equips our kids to be lights for Christ where light is needed. And so that all becomes a part of the everyday growing up. This is a reality of the world that we live in. And sometimes we have a tendency to want to shelter our kids but then that actually eventually hurts them when it comes to being impactful for his kingdom. That's kind of a little bit of our context. Obviously, thinking about where what I do in my spare time, I like to go out to hoop and go to the local park and just play ball. Surprisingly, I'm like decent yet, even though I'm close to 40 years old. I could still play and do stuff like that, and so that's fun. Schooling some people, and so that it's a great way to make connections with people at the local park and all that. I'm a part of Shiloh Mennonite Church, which is a church that's in the city of Redding, and that was the avenue to where I got connected to Christ in the city of Redding. And so when I was around 11 years old or 12 years old, I got connected with the church through their outreach ministry. They would send these vans out, and people would come knock on doors. Hey, you want to come to church? Sure, I'll get in with a stranger. Let's go. And so that was like the best thing we would do then. So that's how I got connected with the Mennonite church and just experienced the love of Christ there. But I attend the church that's in my context. They're in the city, which looks for ways to be impactful in the community as well. And we grow into that, right? It doesn't just happen naturally. Sometimes we go to the church building and we get out of the church building. And even if it's in a context where there's community around, that doesn't mean that we're utilizing our mouth to speak into people. I think Brian alluded a little bit to that when we were sharing in the panel that, we could live in the urban setting. I live in row houses. We got a ton of people on our block. But if I'm not intentional about creating space to connect, then what good is it? Man, if there's a guy that's traveling 45 minutes to come into the city, he might be more impactful than I am if I'm not being intentional with what God has given to me in my context. So anyways, I just want to highlight that just because you live in the city or maybe close to the city, in city limits or in your town, sometimes we feel like, yeah, that's very missional. I live here, and there's a sense of pride that comes from that. But in all reality, who cares if we're not diatriboing with the people around us? Diatribo, to rub shoulders, to influence, to be a part of the community of people in your organic places of connection. Places where you live, work, study, play. Like I mentioned, our cafe is 2 blocks up the street. That was something that this idea of a coffee shop. How much time I got? 3 minutes. Thank you. That's something that this idea of a coffee shop. Let me tell you guys. Don't tell anybody, okay? But I don't know anything about coffee. Like I don't know much about coffee really. But people think I know stuff about coffee because we have a coffee shop that runs well. I don't. But it was really this vision that God gave. He utilized the church, and through a time of prayer and fasting, we said, Lord, what are the needs in our city? And the response was, we need a place where the church can be the church, but it's not in a church building. And so the idea is to bring the church to the streets, to the community, and create a common place where believers can serve the unbelievers and be a testimony and let his light shine, right? To be ambassadors in a space like that. And so I was all on board. I'm like, hey, we should start this. Somebody should take this over and this and that. But in all reality, this whole time, I thought somebody else was going to start the coffee shop. And so I'm like, hey, we got this guy and his wife. They want to start a coffee shop. Whenever we find a space, they're going to be the ones to take it over. And so when we found a space, I said, hey, you guys ready to do this? They're like, we really don't feel called at this time to do this thing. What you mean? We got the space. Like it was confirmed by God. And so it really took us through this thing like, well, now what? And God really utilized the location of the space and everything up to then to confirm and to put it in my heart to say, Manny, I want you to be the investor and the vision caster for this cafe and to take it over. And so that was just like a whole different thing that I was not expecting. But through that, God has done a lot of things because I can't take credit for any of it. I can't say, yes, I had a passion for coffee and then we started it. I can't say I run the coffee shop and I make the best coffee. I can't say any of that. But I can say that from day one, God gave a call. I said, yes, I'll be available, Lord. How can I be used? He called me into that position, and then he continues to bring the people that can run the coffee shop, the manager, the baristas, and all these people that could actually do the job. And so, because of these people, God has started a great ministry that is salt and light in the community. And I'm going to close it at that. So, yeah, with that said, I'm going to pass it off.
Next up is Wendell Martin, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Manny. You're a tough act to follow, like someone said this morning. But my name is Wendell Martin. I live in Pittsburgh, PA. Have lived there for almost 5 years with my wife, Janet, and 6 children, ages 3 to 19. My 2 oldest sons are here running the cameras. Anyhow, I would like to tell you this story that goes with this title, Where's the Farm? We have a family friend whose name is Susan, and Susan introduced us to a friend of hers. We were at Susan's birthday party, and she introduced us to a friend of hers, and so my family's standing there, and she just kind of looks at us and says, "Where's the farm?" and I was guessing at what was going through her head right then, but I said, "Well, we're trying to bring it to the city with us." So that's my answer to this question. I want to try to answer this question, can a farm family flourish in Pittsburgh? I need to do something here. I don't have my notes up.
I'll have to give you an extra couple minutes.
Okay. Got it. Okay, thank you. So as a young man, I dreamed about the ideal place to live, the ideal place to raise my family. And a couple of the things that were in my wish list were a big bank barn, a pasture with a creek or maybe a farm pond, but one of the important things was a long lane with trees on either side of it. Okay, sycamores preferably. But as my wife and I lived on a farm, we lived in a little farm in central PA for 14 years. And Janet and I got to realize there's some things missing from that picture. And mostly it's people. So as our minds began to change, and God opened some doors, we started stepping through them, and we put our little farm in Snyder County up for sale. There's the for sale sign. And I discovered then, and even going into that, there was several ways my thinking needed to change. So my goal is to tell you about them, hopefully inspire you to think about the possibilities. I'm hoping there's someone here today that has a niggling idea about urban life, but maybe is wondering if it can be done or what could it look like. And I'm just here to inspire. I hope I can inspire you with the possibilities. I think urban living with a family can be doable. It's possible. Now, of course, this is my story. Everybody's story is different, but I just hope I can inspire you a little bit with my story. So my wife and I always enjoyed growing things, right? That's part of what being a farmer is. And one of my mindsets that I discovered needed to change was that bigger is better. So I always had this idea that more space is better. We used to live on a small farm. We had quail in an old chicken house you can see in the background of the photo. That's the old chicken house with aluminum siding on it. And we raised quail, sent them to New York City live markets, and we raised beef cattle in our pasture. We measured our land in acres. And we had a typical large Mennonite garden, and we loved it. And had a small orchard, enjoyed caring for it. raised mums in the fall and sold them, a little other produce. And there was something about me that felt successful as a man by having my little farm, if you will. But at some point, I got to realizing that, we own property, we own land here that doesn't really add anything to our lives. We had some large, I don't know if lawn's the right word, grass, that we had to mow, acres, I don't know how much it was, but we had to mow. We had a zero-turn mower because we had to make it faster. And I had to ask myself, is bigger really better? And it's something I think I always believed at kind of like a gut level that, the more I have, the better it is. And still sometimes find myself thinking that, but that was one change of thinking that I had to have to move to the city. But today, instead of spending hours, and so my family's spending hours just maintaining our property, it can be done a lot faster because we don't have 19 and a half acres to be responsible for. Instead, 7,500 square feet. And my wife says, instead of the garden feeling like a burden sometimes, it's actually more enjoyable because it's not so many rows of peas to pick or beans to take care of. So, like I said, it takes some change of mind for me, change of thinking, change of mindset. This is one problem that I have in the city. Okay, so I want to be honest about there's good things and there's bad things about living in the city. This is one problem that I have. I don't have a back 40 and I don't have a burn pile, and I miss them. We went from 19 and a half acres to 7,500 square foot. I feel like our family has adjusted well in the 5 years, or almost 5 years, and Pittsburgh's starting to feel like home. But there's some problems. One is that I can't burn trash very easily. I mean, if you can have hot dog roasts, but once you start doing a trash pile, you're going to get in trouble. And as a contractor, I do a lot of renovations and remodels. And another thing that is a problem is the trash that I generate. And dealing with another thing that has been a mindset change is just dealing with the living in Pittsburgh, living in town has some bureaucracy that's involved. And so if you're thinking about that, just be prepared. It's just what it is. You should have to put up with it. You can adjust, but it is doable. So another thing that I need to change my mindset on is this idea of privacy. So I always thought that more privacy is better. I mean, that's kind of was my default thinking. I never did live on my dream farm, but we lived on this property that my son had a drone shot of, this drone shot of. Lived here for 14 years. One thing that I think God was teaching me a lesson about during this time was in the trees there on the side of the photo, there's a creek, and it got stocked with trout every spring. And the first spring we lived there, I woke up one morning to discover people tramping across my land to get to the creek. And that really bothered me. Anyhow, I think God was teaching me to share my personal space a little bit. And I am coming to realize that a family can thrive with less personal space than the acreage in the country back in a long lane. One thing that if you live in the city, or if you think about living in the city, you have to change your mindset to this is my space, and maybe start seeing your neighborhood as shared space. And there is shared space in cities usually, and you can benefit from that. It can be I see it as a net gain, actually. Pittsburgh has much more shared space than Beaver Springs, the address that we lived at before. And I also want to put in a plug so one thing that comes along with less privacy, the reason you have less privacy is because there's more people, right? There's more people around. You might have a neighbor 3 feet across the property boundary instead of a couple thousand feet. But one thing that does is it does proximity that was mentioned here before today. And I am a firm believer in proximity, both for that people see your lives because you're living your life in proximity to them. And also, church community done in proximity is always going to be better than done at distance. I'm a firm believer in that. And so that's one benefit that our church community has, is that that we're able to live pretty close together. I think all of us are. I can walk to everyone, except for with one exception, to all the people from our church in about a mile or less, several blocks. So I'll just put in a plug for proximity. So the flip side to more privacy or to less privacy means that we're more visible, right? So if there's less privacy, there's more visibility, more transparency. And if you notice and I'm not sure how well you can see on the shot of the city, the downtown Pittsburgh there, but citizens and businesses around me are proud to proclaim their name and their values. We got UPMC building, and we got the, I can't remember the name of the other building there right now, but the lower building in front of it that's got some rainbow colors on the top. And of course, we have a lot of rainbow flags flying in my neighborhood right now. But there are lots of people around me who use those opportunities to present who they are and what their values they represent. And I think as people who often live in the country, we miss some of those opportunities. And I'm just saying, living in the city can give you opportunities to be, like Jesus says, his disciples are a city on a hill, and we're to proclaim his glory and let the light shine out. And his light does shine out more brightly in a dark world. It's more visible, it's more obvious. And his light shines out through a functioning family when so many families are broken. And that's the reality. That's the reality of all around my neighborhood, and I'm sure it is for those of you also who know your neighbors. Jesus' light shines out, I think, better in a tended garden rather than poison ivy and knotweed and tree of heaven all tangled together. It shines out through a close community in a society that's deeply divided. And I have to remember what Jesus said to his disciples. He says, they will know you by the love that you have for each other. And that's one of my main ways of thinking about how we impact our neighbors around us. They will know you by that, Jesus says, and let that be reality. And I love to break people's expectations. I guess I'm a little bit ornery in this way, but I've always enjoyed not fitting in the box when people see me and whatever, think certain things about me, and then I like to break those expectations. And when our neighbors see us maybe, and they see, like, you look like a conservative person or whatever, and then they put you in this box, and then when you get to talking to you and they find out you're not a fundamentalist person who's getting politically involved to make the changes you want to see, that's mind-bending to them. And I think we have a real potential there when we don't fit in the boxes in their minds. Okay, another mindset that I think I had to change, and I'd love to see other people change, is this. Cities are dangerous, wicked, and ugly. This is deeply ingrained, okay? All the way back from when the early Anabaptists got chased up in the mountains because it's the only place they'd let them live, maybe. And all the way back from Lot in Sodom, right? Lot went to Sodom, and what happened to his family? Maybe some of you have been to rescue missions, Times Square, places like that. Maybe you think about crime rates, shootings, robbery, homeless people, and drug addicts. And probably the most common question about family life in the city is it safe? Is raising a family safe in the city? And I want to say yes, crime rates are higher, but police are closer too. And yes, there are drug addicts. There's also drug addicts in the country. And yes, I have gay neighbors, but I think the best witness to that is a functioning, healthy, godly family. And yes, wicked things happen in cities. They also happen behind barns and in haymows. And concrete jungles are ugly. But humans have also made some beautiful things in cities. Come to Pittsburgh and see our bridges. Am I at 2 minutes? Less? 1? Okie doke. Okay, let's move on. So, why isn't it going? Prophet Jeremiah, speaking to God's people in Babylon, said, "Seek the peace of the city, build houses and dwell in them." And in many ways, we're living in Babylon, us living in Pittsburgh, other people. And Babylon is a representation of the evil empires of the world. But I think living in the country is still living in Babylon. And we got to get our minds wrapped around that. Because I think city living can be healthier for us spiritually because it makes that reality clearer. I'm not saying it always works, but this is a possibility. So seek the peace of the city, but realize that this isn't our forever home. We have here no continuing city. Okay, this is the house we live in, the city. I said bigger isn't always better. Well, we do have a big house, even though we have a small lot. It used to be a funeral home. Hector's boys are helping me tear down the awning, helping my boys.
So next up is Benyel Blank. And Benyel, where are you from?
Baltimore.
Baltimore, Maryland. All right, very good. Wendell said that he gave up his 19.5-acre farm for the city, but he got that under roof now.
All right. So we're going to just get right into it because we also have a lot to share and just agree with a lot with what Wendell shared. That's a lot of our testimony. He's saying things that we want to share too. So anyway, this is my family. We are up on, this is called Federal Hill, overlooks downtown Baltimore. And I show that picture because I really love my family and because I really love the city. And when I look at the city in this context, I think it's so ideal. Across the water from where we are, there's this beautiful place where you can sit out along the water, enjoy the water, eat your dinner, supper, whatever, spend some time out there as a family. And you find lots of people out there, and you're sharing this nice, beautiful location with people. And I thought when I moved into the city, my space would be constricted, but I'm finding that I have actually more space. I just share it with people, share it with others. And so a little bit of context on how we got into the city. I'm going to try to make this quick, do a quick summary. I was very anti-city. I was a blacksmith in my early teen years, and I trained horses, and my ideal setting would be to go out west somewhere where I could have a 100-plus acre ranch. And now sometimes I look around myself and I say to myself, what in the world happened? I don't understand. Where are my cattle? Where are my horses? And one of my close friends, God called him to the city, Detroit, Michigan. And then another one of my close friends got called to Baltimore City, which is my cousin also, Manny Lance. He'll be speaking here later. But in that context of one friend going to the city, a few years later, my other closest friend gets called to the city. I was wrestling with God so badly, I did not pray about these situations because I was so afraid that God would also call me into the city. And so I didn't pray about them. I just kind of avoided that altogether until God took a whole different route. We went to visit some friends in New York City, and we visited their small church and just found these little lights in the city. And coming home from that trip, I knew that's God's will, that there's lights in the city like that. And that was the first that God really started working on my heart to move into the city. Before moving to the city, nobody could have paid me to move there. Now, nobody can pay me to move out. So, still context of where we're at. How do I change this? Okay, there we go. What a picture. I'm going to do one more. This is near the Orioles stadium. There we go. Many people on social media put up these nice mountainous lakeside properties, all of these things proclaiming God's creation and beauty, maybe sunsets, maybe rainbows. This is how I display God's beauty of creation. I love people, I really love people, and it draws me to the city. And so that's why I put this picture up, because this is God's creation. That's the eye of his creation, is people. And that's what draws my wife and I to the city. Another thing about the first picture, I really like the ideal setting of a city where there's multiple people living together. I think it's such an ideal place for community. But as I look around my own area and the downtown area and all of those places, something is really off. Something's off. It's ideal. It's super neat how people can live in community, share spaces, but something is off. It's full of sin, selfishness, and greed. And that makes the ideal situation not so ideal. Although you have all of those things in the country also, it's maybe scattered more about and not quite as much piled on top of each other. Nonetheless, it draws me because there's people there. Our specific calling, I have a small company. We do kitchen and bathroom remodeling. We flip some houses. And that's kind of what we do as work. But aside from work, we have a specific calling to minister to college students. And we live close to a college, and we haven't got started there yet. The other calling that we have is church planting. And all of you who may have a desire to do church planting or move into urban settings, don't let church planting scare you. You don't need high education degrees to do church planting. I actually like to call it simple church because it's super simple. It's very easy. And when the Spirit of God is there, it multiplies on its own. So don't let that scare you. But that's our calling, is church planting. And both my wife and I have a burden for college students. We believe church planting starts with relationships. And a few ways of relating is we live right on the corner lot, which I don't even have a picture of our house, but it's just a blessing because people walk by all the time and we just get to conversate. And then we invite people over into our homes, into our backyard. We make some food and fellowship. And it's just been so amazing. It's been so fulfilling to just have people come over and spend time together. There's a big need for, what was that? I'm going to let my wife take on from here.
Some of the avenues that some of the doors that God has opened for us with hospitality or with relationships is there's a dire need for parents in the city to have child training classes or have teaching on how to raise children. Pretty much everybody just wings it, and they look at our family and are thinking like, how can you have 5 children and still function? Because they're viewing us through their experience of having 1 child, and it's totally chaos. And that creates many, many, many opportunities to speak into people's lives. Is wherever we go, there's always comments on your children. How are they so well behaved? And it just opens doors to, we always come away with them asking a lot of questions. And through that, it has actually opened a door to hosting child training classes in our home. It's a website that it's an older couple that got this website together. So we just watch a short video together and then discuss from there. And that's been huge. It's been a huge blessing for the families that are coming, and there's more waiting. We keep meeting families that want to do it. So, and it's very Christian based, very, very biblical, and we're like, I don't know where God is taking this, but it's exciting. We also have an Airbnb in our basement, and through that we get to meet a lot of people, interact.
Hospitality, we do lots of hosting. People we know, we just meet them on the streets. We get to talk, say, hey, can we have you over for dinner sometime? And invite them over for dinner. And it's amazing, the results, because people are curious about our family. And what she said about children, if you move into the city, even if you don't move into the city, Make sure you get educated on how to train your children, because your children are your biggest asset to the gospel. When people see husband and wife relationships, they see the gospel flowing between husband and wife, and then they see that gospel flowing between husband, wife, and children, and the children, how they interact with one another. They're not perfect. We have things to work on. But nonetheless, on the scale of average American children, educate yourselves on raising kids God's way, and it will validate the gospel that you preach. The gospel comes with a house key. It's actually a book that we like, and we like that term because that is part of the gospel, is inviting people into your own personal space and creating a safe place for us to have open conversations. People are not projects. People are desiring relationships. In New York City, there's 8 million people. My friend that lives up there in New York City, he said, one of the biggest problems here is everybody's lonely. And I thought to myself, how can 8 million people be lonely, all living together? And the gospel and being in a desire, love relationship with people changes that. We also, go ahead, I'll let you take that.
We need to go faster. Manny touched on this a little bit as far as going to the park, and we love going to the park. Or going for walks. There's a lake close by to our house that we go a lot, and we love going there and meeting people. But of course, yeah, you see people high, you see people hungover, you see homeless, you see gay people, LGBTQ community. But we do all that processing with our children. We're very intentional with including the children in the mission, and yeah, we talk about it. If we see it, it's just teaching grounds, and it's teaching them what they don't want for their future.
Just to touch on that, coming from the country where that stuff also is, but not as much. But we have neighbors who are gay and lesbian and all other things, and we're kind of processing it ourselves, but we process it with our kids, with the children, because they also need a healthy view of that. Rather than just wondering what's going on, we help them understand and give them God's perspective on it. Sometimes many people, I know, have this question, what do your children do? I think priority needs to be first. Take the calling that God is putting on your life. If you have a desire to be with people and have a life that's fulfilled in ministry, pursue that, because God gives opportunities that we've never thought of. Our children do lots of dog walking and cat sitting for the neighbors, and I also get to work in the neighborhood quite a bit. So I go home for lunch every day. I don't go to work till 9. Go home for lunch and come home around 5 or 6. And so an alternative to moving out, buying a farm somewhere, trying to have more family time, just move into a city where your kids and you can all work together in that same neighborhood. Your space, and it's a mindset change of your space. Rather than constricting your space is expanding, and you're sharing it with others. And it's actually really beautiful and easier than most people think it is. Easier than I thought it was. One final story as we're rounding up. We had some good friends. He's a surgeon. I'm not going to mention their names right now, but he's a surgeon. He has high degrees, very high. And one of the things that he struggles with the most is purposelessness. He's a plastic surgeon. He does all kinds of plastic surgeries. If somebody's in an accident, they mess up their face, you can go to him and fix it up. And one of his main struggles is purposelessness in life. And so that couple, they're a real blessing. We get together with them from time to time, and we just eat together. The first time that we got together at our house, we made some burgers on the grill, and he brought his little vegan burger because he would never eat something that was raised in some kind of bad environment where all these beef or swine or whatever is packed into this thing, and it's not good meat. And anyway, I said, is it okay we thank God for the food? And they're kind of agnostic. They're not God, and yes, maybe God. They're kind of just in the middle. And I said, sure. So I thank God for the cow that lived a good life and ate from the pasture, green pastures, and the cow had a good life. And I just thank God in front of them for this delicious meat. And the first time in 25. The first time in 25 years he ate a burger. And so afterwards, his wife said, "Thanks for making this a good experience for my husband." And so there's so many opportunities. I don't have time to talk about all of them, but press in.
So next up is Austin Shank, and from where?
York.
York, Pennsylvania.
Sunday marks 41 years since my parents moved from Leola into the city of York. They moved to the second floor of the church building, and 2 days later, my dad was ordained, and the rest is history, but you don't know it, so let me tell you it. My dad believed and demonstrated very well that the best way to love the world is to love your family, and he did an incredible job of it. He was brought to York because of my mom while they were dating. There was a VBS, and he wanted to hang out with his girlfriend, so he came in with her to do VBS. And the first night of VBS, the fourth grade class was completely empty. There was no fourth graders, so my mom said, "Well, how about we just go to the adult class?" And he said, "No, let's go find fourth graders." So he went out and asked, "Are you in fourth grade? Are you in fourth grade? Are you in fourth grade?" And by the end of the VBS, they had the largest class. What he didn't know is that the pastor of the church at the time had committed to 1 year, and he was on his 8th or 9th year of running the church as an intern pastor. And so they were very desperate for a pastor, and as soon as he moved in, they were ready to ordain him. So one thing that he said quite often was the best way to show your children love is to love their mother. And he demonstrated that incredibly well. He was constantly talking about how much he loved her, how much he believed she was the best woman in the whole wide world, how incredibly well she was at doing everything. And we just grew up believing that that was true. We had the world's best mom, and it was just incredible to watch that happen. And from the very beginning, we hardly ever saw them fight. We noticed sometimes that there was a little tension, she disagreed with something, but almost never was there any disagreement in front of us children. And that was so powerful for us to watch. Constantly, we could hear it coming through the walls, we could see it on the street. There was constant fights from all over, children fighting with each other, adults fighting with each other, couples fighting with each other. And to see in our home that not happening was such a gift. Now, that's a gift that many of our people just take for granted because we do that. But for me, I didn't know. I knew the difference because of what I saw around me, but I didn't really realize how much of a difference, how much a gift that was until one thing about my dad was he had all kinds of crazy ideas, and he didn't necessarily think through them all very well. But he had offered to Sharon Mennonite Bible School to host their fifth term tour. So they had a fifth term, and they never would go to tour anywhere. So he said, "Well, just come to York every time." So they said, "Sure, can you provide the bus?" So we drive the school bus out, and we pick up the SMBI students, and for a weekend we would have them hang out in York, and then we'd take them home. So one night on the way home, we're all riding in this bus together down 30, and we just see flash by us the sign for the Appalachian Trail. And my dad said, "Boys, someday we're going to hike that together." And my mom looked at him like, "What? Oh, we are? Oh, interesting." And I'll believe that when I see it. So that was 10 years before we committed to doing that. And up until the time they met, until that moment, that first night away, they had not been separated from each other for more than a week, from dating till that moment. He constantly, wherever he went, he took us with him. He traveled all over the U.S., but would never spend a night away from us. Incredible gift to us. But I had no idea, even as a 16-year-old, how much a gift that was to leave his wife, who hadn't done, for what was going to be 6 months. As I look back on that experience, I realized the incredible gift that was. We knew without a doubt that he loved our mother, but he was willing, together they were willing to make the commitment to have that experience. And everyone we met, they were just totally blown away that a dad would take off for so long to hike with his boys and to make those memories. And we thought it was cool too, but we had no idea how cool that was. One day, while we were hiking, one of the very few days we were hiking in the rain, it's miserable to hike in the rain, by the way, and so we're hiking, walked into the shelter, and the guy that was hiking there with us said, "Your Uncle Dan is looking for you." And we're in Connecticut, and wondering why our Uncle Dan's in the area, so we called him and found out that he's looking for us. They're headed to Boston, wanted to stop in and surprise us, but didn't work out because of finding us in the woods. So finally found us. We loved our Uncle Dan and Aunt Lori because they would bring ice chests of food, including ice cream and all that kind of stuff, and you always want food when you're hiking. So, so excited to see them. We're enjoying the food and the fellowship and all of that, and then my mom walked out of the woods. And it was incredible for us. It was incredible. We knew from the very beginning that my mom and my dad were madly in love, but we watched it in that moment. Just so incredible. It was no secret, and it was incredibly clear. The other thing that he believed strongly was that you dwell with your wife according to knowledge, as 1 Peter talks about. And for my parents, for my mom, I was amazed at how much time she made food and host people, and there was people that stay in our house. There were people that constantly in our house. Alan and Carolyn Roth from New York City were visiting, and after the umpteenth time of somebody coming in and leaving, they're like, "Wow, this is like Grand Central Station." Like, they just were so amazed at how many times that door was revolving, and there was people constantly in and out of our house. And I remember I went to Faith Builders for 2 years and was away from all of that hectic life, and I came back and visited, and I was kind of overwhelmed. I was like, wow, this is so many people. Once a week we would have cafe and invite people into our house to give them free food, and it was just a house full of people. And I was like, how in the world does my mom do this? And at the end of the night, we'd have singing and questions for the pastor, which my dad was, to ask any questions they want. So that was the way that the cafe would end. And I remember sitting there and looking over at my mom, and she was just beaming. She was in her element. She was loving every moment of this. And I realized that that is dwelling with her according to knowledge. I married an introvert, and to her mind, hosting is like incredible if it's like 3 people, right? That's the max. Like, she just is her prime like hosting opportunity. So she loves to do it, but it's so much different than what I grew up in. But my dad taught me, you dwell with them according to knowledge. And so our setup in my household is different than the way I grew up, because it was ingrained into me that you dwell according to knowledge. One of the interpretations of Jesus' words was, I must be about the Father's busyness. I used to joke at 18 that my dad led the church and I ran it. So I was involved in everything. All right, so I was the director of evangelism, not even graduated from high school yet, the director of the Big Brother program, director of VBS, trustee, and I don't remember what else. There was just constant busyness. And I would hear the story about Jesus and this idea about being about the Father's business, and he went from age 12, when he was brought back, he spent 18 years in the carpenter shop, and I thought, wow, this is weird. Definitely not, I'm 18 right now. He was more time in the carpenter shop than I was alive, and I was constantly doing all this. It just didn't dawn on me. Like, I was just like, okay, whatever, it's different, but whatever, it's the way the world is right now. But if I can impress anything on you all from my experience growing up in the city, it is that there is a ton of opportunities to be busy. Manny mentioned that if you're not intentional, you can just completely miss your neighbors, you can miss all of that stuff. And the only way we're truly going to be able to reach our cities for God is if we're going to be able to have the freedom to be available to them when they need us. And that is something God is continuing to work on me, and it's something that I just want to leave with you. My dad was an incredible visionary, and he gifted to me that as well. But anyway, he told me as he was dying of cancer, my brother asked him, "Is there anything else you want to tell us?" And he told us two things. He said, "You boys read the book, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. It's an incredible book," and we knew he liked that, but that was one of the closing things he wanted to remind us about. And he said, "I wrote it in your books." And so we're like, we knew what that was. Daddy had written books, to each one of us, a journal. And so when he died and went to heaven, we all cried hysterically for about an hour, and then we all ran and grabbed our books. I'm going to read to you what he wrote to me. Maybe. Dearest Austin, it has been such a blessing to watch you function as a husband, as a father. The decisions you make in both of these categories is fun to watch. You are a wise man. This week, you mentioned how much you enjoy working with me at school, but you mentioned that you wish that we had more time to do things together, just the two of us. What a challenge it would be nice to work on that idea in this coming year. Of course, in this coming year, we will both have added responsibilities to our plates. Your next child is scheduled to arrive in May, and we just won the bid for a new building last week. Truly, God is good. In many ways, I see you doing things in life that I did, but in many more ways, I see you doing things much better than me. Your disciplined life is such a challenge to me. Your organization far surpasses anything I could ever hope for. I'm quite proud of you, son. Love, Daddy. And I read that an hour after he was gone. He wrote it 2 years before that, and I hadn't read it. And it inspired me to never have my son have to read that from me. I want to live a life that is so free and available for people that there is no time that we have to live with those kinds of regrets. Because our plates did get full. And even in his cancer journey that lasted 9 months, there was very few times that I sat and just spent time and listened with him. And that inspired me to work together with our students at our school to put together a planner, a journal, and a devotional so that you can live an intentional life and actually accomplish the things that you and God work out together. So those are available back there on the table. Feel free to help yourself to that. But that's the result of my dad's letter to me after he was gone. And my encouragement to you is it doesn't matter if you gain the whole world and lose your own soul, but it also doesn't matter if you gain the whole world and lose your family. So many people judged my parents for raising their children in the city because they would lose their family. And I'm here to testify that it is not for lack of love for us. That's the reason that we are still in love with God, in love with each other, and in love with my mom, is because my dad's willingness to invest in us and care about us deeply. And so no matter where you go from here, what God calls you to do, whether it's moving to the city or doing something else, invest in your family. It is the most priceless gift you have, and that is such an incredible witness to anyone you see, whether that's in the city or wherever God calls you. Be faithful at loving them. Thank you. And this is a business idea you can talk to me about later if you have interest. Wendell, my question to you is, what inspired you to sell the farm? You told the story of selling it, but what actually started it?
Somebody said somebody said about doing things too fast. I'm someone that takes a long time to do anything. So my wife and I actually had the idea that, you know what, if we want to influence people, sometimes you got to be around people. And so just living in city and hearing other people talking about the inspiration behind that and like going to the people instead of expecting them to come out to us. So that was why. But it took a while. It probably took me 5 years of thinking about it till it happened. So
Austin, how do you practically live out spending time with your children and nourishing that?
It's a great question, and I'm not doing great at it right now. I do construction 4 days a week, 15 hours a day, and very convicted. So I'm working actively at trying to find something else to do with my time that will allow my children to come with me. I usually take them anywhere I can that's acceptable to have them with me. And so whether that's, I do a lot of meetings with people. One of the things I'm doing as an alternative to construction is helping ministries partner with donors. And so I love that thing, and I get to take my kids along with me for that. So I'm praying that that helps. My wife is very crafty, and she's at home with the kids today doing a craft class, a weaving class. So her goal is to build up that business. So those two things are something we're being very intentional about building into. But right now, not so good.
Wendell keeps looking at me like I should say something. Nah, I don't have questions. I just have a lot of affirmation. I appreciate what you guys shared, and it was just very encouraging and inspiring. So I thank you guys for sharing that. I'm walking away here with just some stuff to work on myself. So I appreciate what you guys are sharing here. I love that.
Back to you, Manny. My question, or at the end, one thing that you wish you could tell this group, like concisely, one thing that we do well with when we try to move into the city, and one thing we don't do so well with.
Why are you gonna put me out like that? Well and not well. Should I start with the good or bad? He said yes. No. Start with the bad, then end it with the cherry on top. To be honest, I don't know that I have any like negative feedback when it comes to people actually moving into the city or a town or something like that. As a matter of fact, when somebody moves in, I rejoice because we need more laborers in the field. But if there's anything that I could say to a group this size, right, as a blanket statement, in Anabaptist circles is, I'm assuming that if you're sitting here, there's something that's stirring your heart about the possibility of moving into an urban setting. And I would just say, if God is putting that in your heart, don't ignore it. Like, just go for it. You have one life to live, and obviously, if the Holy Spirit is before you, then who could go against you, right? And so I say, do it. And I don't know that I have heard any regrets of the people that have been, that I've met in the city that have been invested. I'm thinking about Shiloh. A lot of the guys that were discipling me as a young man moved into the city, and that spoke a lot to my life. And I keep coming back to proximity. And so, yep, I encourage you guys, if something is stirring within your heart, if when we're out of our comfort zone, it means that we're no longer in control and we're relying on the Holy Spirit's leading. And so we don't like getting out of our comfort zone, but when we do, it allows for the Spirit of God to direct us. And so yeah, I want to say that if something is stirring in your heart about the possibility, pray into it, talk to one of these guys here, and there's a lot of opportunities that God can utilize you guys.
Austin, I have a question for you. Growing up in York, did you wish to be out of town?
I enjoyed four-wheeler whenever I got on it, tried not to flip, and I enjoyed farming. We had families who come to church, and we'd go out and hang out with them. But I always wanted to come home to the city. So I enjoyed the experiences, I enjoyed the Appalachian Trail, I enjoyed all of those things, but the city was my home.
Can I answer your question or add an answer. I think one thing that us as Anabaptist people can learn is to, so many times our culture kind of has this feel of like we have the answers, we can go and kind of fix anything. Well, you move into the city, don't take that attitude with you, leave that at home, because they have been there, that's where they grew up, they know how to run the city, and we need to go and learn from them. And when we learn from them, then we know how to speak their language and bring gospel to those situations. So any Anabaptist ego, you can just leave that at home.
Okay, with that question there, Manny, there's a question that came in. As someone that was not born in our culture, what has been the one thing that has been most disappointing, and how have you navigated that? We're just putting you on the spot, but
Yeah.
it's your last session. You can go for it.
I'm kicked out after this. Yeah. One of the most disappointing things you're saying, right? Is that right? I think that I've had a few encounters where there was something similar to what you were sharing there, with a mentality, that a savior mentality. You're coming to serve. You're coming with the answers, and like you're saying, when you're going to somebody's turf, like that, this is not a great way to get to know the community. And so I would say, like, there was times where there would be, there were some guys that I really connected with, and then there were some that just came across as arrogant, or we even wondered, like, what's the motive for them being here? Let's say even at our kids' clubs or what, because there just wasn't a jive there, and there was this us and them mentality that is pride. Like, we all fall short of the glory of God and desperately need Him, but there's this false thing about that. And so there were some encounters with those that were just turnoffs, and made it more difficult for us to really see that image of Christ as a whole in the church, because some of those guys.
So, Austin, this is one for you. In what ways have you stewarded your pain with your dad leaving you early there?
So writing the book was helpful to the process of actually processing it for myself. But I just realized that my dad lived every moment for God and for us and for others, and he just poured his life out in such a way that he worked himself into an early grave. My question that I am left with, that I had to wrestle with, is how do I do that and stay around for my grandkids? And so I have had to say no to a lot more things than I thought than I was raised saying yes to, many a times that's my own things, because I have like 1 to 300,000 new ideas every day, so that's partly my own issue I have to process, and my wife is very helpful for me in that. But I really do think that it's just a continual realization of the reminder that life is short, and so every moment matters. And it's one of the reasons that I'm struggling so much with my construction job. Construction's not a problem, but I have been gifted my children at this time and this very short window, and I want to love them well. And so I'm very, very much intentionally thinking about how can I form a life. And it's not like an overnight switch, it's not any of that. It's just continuously processing. And it's been a lifelong journey, even when my dad was still here, to process, like, how do I live a life that is available for people? And it's just an ongoing question that you have to answer, and you have to make the daily decisions. Well, am I going to go spend time doing this, or am I going to go invest in my neighbor who needs help?
Yeah, that's great. And Wendell, because I think you could speak to that a little bit. Like, how do you manage your family? How do you manage to make time, carve out time, spend time with your family?
You're putting me on the spot now.
I am putting you on the spot, but I think you're the guy to answer that.
So,
Okay, here, let me add to that. Actually, no, I can't add to that because it's for your boys. They're not up here.
Well, I guess part of the answer to the question of what took me to the city was also the thing of thinking about I could live my life making a good living, get old and retire someday, and wonder really what I did with my life that was really valuable. And I felt like God was calling me to the city, so that was a way I can see that there's value in what I've done with my time, and I guess thinking about that with my family as well. Like I've never heard of a dad on his deathbed saying, "I wish I wouldn't have spent so much time with my family," right? So I don't feel like I do this real great. I think I need to hear that story of going hiking on the Appalachian Trail and stuff like that. But yeah.
Real practical things that my dad did that I want to continue. Weekly family night, and then monthly teen encounter. So all the teenagers of the family and mom and dad would go out to eat once a month. So I don't have teenagers yet, but what I'm implementing is a date with not 1 year old, but my 3-year-old and up. We have monthly dates when the kids are in bed. The one stays up with mommy and daddy, and we get to hang out. So that's one thing.
Was the teen encounter fun or was that tense?
Oh, it was incredible fun. Yeah. Daddy would just ask, like, what do we need to talk about? And we'd talk. He also believed that nothing good happened after midnight except maybe a good family conversation. So, like, his bedroom door was always open. He was staying up working. And so on our way to bed at, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, we would stop in and talk for another 2 or 3 hours. That's partly why he's dead. So it's partly what I want, how to sleep and live.
Yeah, okay. It's about time to wrap this up. Were you gonna say something, Wendell? Go ahead.
No, Austin just tried to hand it off on me and I took it. So.
Okay. I don't want to. We're not gonna cut anybody off right here.
I did get cut off earlier though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't have my slides here, but I feel like you can bring some of what you know as a good life in the country. You can bring some of that to the city with you. It's just gonna take some creativity, but you can create a little bit of the Garden of Eden in Babylon. It could be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wendell has done a good job of that. His house is huge. Like I said, he brought all his acreage under one roof now. His house is massive. And, hosting families and have people living upstairs, and there's so much more he could say. I'm sure he probably had about 20 or 30 more slides. He should have. But no, it's great. Like, really, really amazing place there in Pittsburgh. So, inspiration for sure.